They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But for Sophie Cunningham, it's a fire she's broadcasting live to the entire world. You've probably seen the headlines. You've heard the clips. Sophie Cunningham, the fiery guard for the Indiana Fever, versus Skip Bayless, the titan of hot take media. And on the surface, it looks like just another athlete pundit squabble. But that's the story they want you to see. The real story, the one they don't want you to know, is that what happened to Skip Bayless wasn't a clapback, it was a warning shot. It was the first act of revenge in a war that's just getting started. Because Sophie's real target isn't some talking head on television. It's the entire system she believes is failing her, her teammates, and the game she loves. This isn't about one insult, this is about a rebellion. And we have the proof that her revenge tour is just getting started. And the WNBA itself is next on her list. Let's start with the kill shot. The moment Sophie Cunningham didn't just win the battle against Skip Bayless, she ended it. Bayless, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, went on his show and labeled Sophie a clout chaser for her passionate defense of her teammate Caitlin Clark. It was a classic lazy media attack. Easy bait. He expected a few angry tweets, some fan backlash, and then the world would move on. He made a catastrophic miscalculation. He didn't realize he wasn't just poking a player, he was poking a warrior who was already looking for a fight. Sophie didn't just respond, she dismantled him with his own hypocrisy. On her podcast, she laid the trap perfectly. She didn't scream or get angry, she just used cold hard facts. She calmly asked, "Skip, who's the clout chaser? You're literally using my name as your headline so people can click on it." That was the first jab. It was sharp, it was accurate, and it exposed the truth. Bayless, the man accusing others of chasing relevance, was using her name to prop up his own flagging engagement. But she wasn't done. She delivered the knockout blow. A detail so humiliating, so utterly devastating, that it's a wonder he's shown his face since. She pointed out that the very YouTube video where he called her a clout chaser had only 36 views. 36. Let that sink in. A man with a multi-million-dollar media empire, a platform broadcasting to the world, couldn't even muster 40 clicks while trying to attack her. With one sentence, Sophie flipped the entire narrative. She wasn't the clout chaser. He was. He was the one desperate for attention, using her fire to keep his own dying embers warm. She ended her takedown by saying what we all know. That's all he's done his whole career. It was a public execution. Revenge Chapter 1 was complete. But this is where the story truly begins. Because why was Sophie so ready, so willing to go to war over this? Why didn't she just ignore it like so many other athletes do? Because she was already furious, she was already watching a system she felt was corrupt and broken, and the attack from Bayless was just the spark that lit the fuse on a powder keg of righteous indignation. To understand Sophie's war, you have to understand the betrayals she was witnessing every single day. You have to look at what was happening to her teammates. Let's talk about Lexie Hull. In the span of just a few days, Lexie suffered 2 separate brutal head injuries that left her with 2 of the worst black eyes you will ever see on a basketball court. Sophie said it herself. She looked like an avatar. One of those incidents was an accident, a collision with Gabby Williams that was just a part of the game. But the other one was different. Against the Minnesota Lynx, the game was stopped. And after the whistle, Kayla McBride allegedly performed an extra movement and just elbowed and nailed Lexie right in the fucking face. Sophie's words, not mine. She called it way too much. It was a cheap shot, an unnecessary act of aggression that left her teammate battered. And what did the league do? What did the referees who are paid to protect the players do? They issued a technical foul. Not a flagrant 1. Not a flagrant 2. Not an ejection. A simple technical foul for an act that Sophie, an eyewitness, described as a blatant elbow to the face of her teammate. This is the first betrayal. The system that is supposed to protect you simply looks the other way. Sophie saw a teammate get assaulted on the court, and the punishment was a slap on the wrist. How can you trust a system like that? But it wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern. And the next victim of this systemic failure was Kelsey Mitchell. According to Sophie, Kelsey Mitchell should be in the MVP conversation. She says Mitchell is playing the best basketball of her career, that literally no one in the league can stop her. Yet for some reason she doesn't get the calls. She doesn't get the respect from the officials that other superstars do. Sophie described a moment that sent her over the edge. They were playing LA, and right in front of a referee, Kelsey Plum of the Aces literally grabbed Mitchell's arm and flung her around, a blatant foul, obvious to anyone watching. And the whistle never blew. The silence of that whistle was deafening. It was proof of a double standard. Sophie laid it out with chilling clarity. How are you not calling that? You're protecting all the other stars in the league. Why would you not protect Kelsey? This is the heart of the conspiracy. It suggests a hidden agenda in the league's officiating. Are some players on a blacklist? Are others getting preferential treatment? Why is an MVP-caliber player being treated like a rookie? Sophie sees her teammates, one physically battered and the other systematically ignored, and she sees a league that is at best incompetent and at worst corrupt. The betrayals are piling up. So when the league then turned its sights on her for speaking out, she was more than ready for a fight. This brings us to the second front of Sophie's war, her direct financial battle with the WNBA. The league has a simple rule: don't criticize the officiating. If you do, they will fine you. They will try to silence you by hitting your wallet. They tried it with Sophie 3 separate times. First, a $500 fine for a TikTok where she criticized the refs. Then, a much steeper $1,500 fine for comments she made on the very first episode of her podcast. And then a third undisclosed fine for comments she made about the officiating in a game involving Paige Buckers. The message from the league was clear. Shut up. Stop talking about the referees. Stop exposing the inconsistencies. Stop telling the truth. They thought the fines would silence her. Just like Skip Bayless, they fundamentally misunderstood who they were dealing with. They thought Sophie Cunningham cared about money more than she cared about justice. They were wrong. Her response to this financial assault was utter defiance. She went right back on her podcast and said, "You fining me $500 is not going to do shit. And then I'll get fined for that, and then I'll get fined for this, and the fines will continue." This is her declaration of war against the league itself. She is openly daring them to keep fining her. She's making it clear that her voice is not for sale. She believes that speaking the truth about the league's failures is worth more than any amount of money they can take from her. This is the key to understanding her revenge. The takedown of Skip Bayless was practice. It was her sharpening her claws, testing her aim. She proved she could identify a hypocrite and dismantle them in the court of public opinion. Now she's taking that same energy and aiming it at a much bigger target, the entire WNBA establishment. She believes the league is just as hypocritical as Bayless. They talk about player safety, but let Lexie Hull get elbowed in the face with minimal consequences. They talk about fairness in competition, but let an MVP candidate like Kelsey Mitchell get mugged on the court without a whistle. And when anyone dares to point out this hypocrisy, they try to bully them into silence with fines. Sophie's superpower is the one thing they can't control. As she says herself, her best attribute is that she simply doesn't give a shit. She doesn't care about their fines. She doesn't care about the opinions of media hacks. She cares about her teammates. She cares about fairness. And she's willing to burn her own money to expose a system she believes is broken. Her revenge on Skip Bayless was about her reputation. Her war with the WNBA is about the soul of the league. So where does this go from here? The Bayless situation is over. He was exposed, humiliated, and silenced by the very clout chaser he tried to diminish. That battle is won. But the war is just beginning. Sophie Cunningham has drawn a line in the sand. She has publicly stated that the league's attempts to silence her will not work. She will continue to speak out. She will continue to call out what she sees as injustice. And she will continue to pay the price defiantly and with a smile. The question is, what will the WNBA do? Will they escalate? Will the fines get bigger? Will they threaten a suspension? Every move they make to silence her only proves her point, that they are an institution that fears the truth. Or will other players, emboldened by her courage, join the rebellion? Will one player's revenge tour become a league-wide revolution? The takedown of Skip Bayless proved Sophie Cunningham knows how to win a fight. But that was just a battle against one man. Now she's taking on an entire league, and that is a war that is far from over.